episode. Sorry, it's not the big one. It's not 350 last week. It's the 351.
Oh, good engine, though.
350. Yeah, there we go. It's episode 351, No Laugh Track Podcast. This is Justin Severson. I'm the host. We're at Acme Comedy Company in Minneapolis. My guest, you just briefly heard his voice there. It's David Huntsberger. He is back. It's been 2 years, maybe, since we've talked here on stage.
I think I've done this 2 or 3 times.
I think this is 4. Yeah,
Oh,
I think
wow.
3 in the books. This is 4. I looked back briefly. I think we did one, just the 2 of us.
Uh-huh.
Then there was one with Tommy Ryman.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
And maybe another one with Cy?
The one with Cy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
That
3.
was the week that we were over. We all went to a city council meeting.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, of course I do.
Yeah.
I tell people about that sometimes because, one, I didn't dress appropriately. I just wore a T-shirt. And then I didn't realize it was going to be filmed in any way, and I don't think that impacted me. It was I did not realize how much my fear of speaking in public, which sounds crazy as a comedian,
Really?
would present. And I've talked to so many comedians that have that same thing of like whether they are parents and like, oh my God, when I have to stand up at sort of a, not a committee thing, but sort of where everyone gets together and the kids are there and you have to talk in front of kind of the other parents.
Like a PTA,
something
parent
like
teacher
that.
thing or something?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people belong to the PTA, but that sort of same scenario. Any place where you have to get up where it's the parameters are not established in the same way that a comedy club is.
Oh,
like
okay.
you come where you know the lights are on you and the amplification and like you have your prepared things, or you can in the moment riff. When those are taken away and it's a city council meeting where you shouldn't be riffing and you kind of know what you want to say, but you've never done it before.
Uh-huh.
And it should seem like the easiest thing ever. Like, you've done stand-up, it's no big deal. But just looking up and seeing a bunch of faces who are either disinterested or taking notes or scowling at me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I was just like, oh, anyway, Acme's great. I hope you keep coming back. I felt so panicked by that. And then afterward, of course, I had all these like, oh, what I should have done.
Right.
And I think that's just such a frustrating feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So I bring that up a lot because that was such a frustrating thing to learn all the dynamics of the city council and all that.
Oh, yeah.
That was weird.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad this place is still here.
Yeah, Acme's still here. You can still find a parking spot. You have to work a little harder sometimes to get a parking spot outside the club here.
But it's worth it.
But it is 100% worth it. Plus, freaking, come here and drink. Take an Uber. You don't even need a parking spot.
Yeah.
All right? Come here, spend a bunch of money on booze.
Yeah, it feels good to be in this room. I love it.
Have you been to a city council meeting since?
No, but some friends of mine went in L.A. and were telling me, I forget, they were in like...
Was there a comedy club worried about parking there?
They had like a neighbor or someone had to do with dogs, I think, or some ordinance that was trying to be put in for someone. I don't know the specifics, but yeah, some friends of mine went and then...
Did you say dress appropriately?
Yeah, I was trying to give him some pointers, and my buddy went with notes, and then he said he did kind of riff, because someone made some dumb thing of like, well, if we allow this, then we're likely going to have drownings caused by dogs off the leash, and something to that effect. And then my friend, when he got up to speak, goes, as someone who's never experienced a drowning via dogs off leash, I just want to say, something where he referenced very like cheeky.
Mm-hmm. I'll put this in my words to make you sound dumb.
Just to put back you how ridiculous what you said is.
Right. I will say one last thing I want to say about when we all went to the city council thing to talk about Acme and the parking and the building that's built across the street now is I showed up with my daughters. And they thought it was so cool because occasionally the camera was on them standing in the back of that room. They thought that was super cool. Actually, one last thing is I can't believe city council or any of that stuff hasn't been part of my life, won't be. That's not my calling. The fact that those people have to sit there and listen to arguments about whether a building can have 2 more inches closer to a boulevard and shit like that.
Wasn't that weird to hear?
Dear God.
Yeah.
Stop. Just cut it down the middle. Oh, my God.
I was so thankful that it did exist because you're listening to them going, they did 2 or 3 things prior to this being on the list. I think this was the final thing. So they were like, the U-turn to allow deliveries and or drive-through at blah, blah, blah pharmacy. Yeah. It's X amount of feet away from the curb, which is that a blind curve. So we went and checked it out. It's literally just people going like, we think we could do this.
Uh-huh.
And I like that if you just had people developing, of course, if you and I stood to make $10 million and we went like, this could make a really dangerous right-hand turn, but we got to put this in. You kind of like that a city council would go, we went and drove it and checked it out. It does seem unlikely, so we're not going to approve it. We voted, and then you and I would be like, we'll get you. We'd go scheme again. They do. I feel like, if anything, they fight back. But maybe they get a little overzealous sometimes. Or maybe they do get influenced by you and I finally sway them with money, and they build that thing, and then a ton of people make a right-hand turn and get creamed, and who knows? Who knows how effective any city council is?
I'm going to show up again when they get rid of all right-hand turns.
I'm with you.
That's my project. So we just covered that. We saw each other a few years ago here doing the podcast with Cy and all that.
Yeah.
We saw each other in Orlando earlier this year, back in, was it February?
Yeah, I think so, or early March.
Yeah, early March. I should know because it was part of my big family vacation.
Yeah.
Saw you do stand-up with Chad Daniels at
that was
a
really fun.
club in Orlando. That was pretty awesome.
That was really cool. Yeah, I'd never seen much of Florida that way. And then he did, I think, 8 shows, and almost all of them in different cities. So we were kind of driving, seeing a bunch of Florida throughout, and didn't see I mean, we saw a man. I don't think I've ever seen this, and this isn't that crazy, but a man driving like a pretty big truck, I think with a trailer being towed behind it, and he had his left almost full leg hanging out his driver's side window. And I hadn't really seen that before. You see a lot of passengers maybe with the leg draped over the side.
Oh, yeah.
But this was his driving side, leg out the window.
No, definitely not a clutch in that vehicle.
Yeah, definitely an automatic. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then we saw a woman midday pulled over it's really open down there, you know. There's not a lot of guardrails. It's just giant shoulders that are all grassy.
Yeah.
Big sweeping medians or gullies in between them.
That's where the alligators live.
Yeah, but it's all mowed. It's really pretty, but everything feels slow and lazy, and you're like, oh, this is Florida. It doesn't feel like this crazy spring break Miami nightlife. And granted, we weren't really in those areas, but there was a woman midday, and it seemed like she was wearing like work attire, just pulled over, vomiting profusely. And I brought that up to some people, and they're like, well, that's not that crazy. And I was like, yeah, true. I mean, that's not like the Florida we think of with meth and bath salts and crazy, but it is something you don't see very often. And we were in Florida 8 days, and I saw it. So I was like, this makes sense. There's just something going on in Florida. Yeah.
Like, I spent a week in New York when I was 18, like Times Square, Manhattan, and saw, like, every day we went out, I randomly ran into, like, a celebrity, because that's what happens in New York. Same thing.
Right,
Just Florida, you might see somebody throwing up on the side of the road midday.
And the fact that none of them thought it was even remotely atypical is the equivalent of you and I in New York being like, we just saw so-and-so. Like, that happens.
Yeah. I think that was Carrot. Was that Carrot Top? That was De Niro? I don't know. God, everywhere we go.
And then we saw this really terrible car. Can I use cursing language?
Sure.
Okay, so you see a lot of like, take these guns from my hand, or Second Amendment. This one just said "fuck gun control" on the shittiest car, and it was like a big sticker. And it was a sticker that clearly had been on there maybe longer even than the Parkland thing. So you're like, that's a weird area to suddenly be driving around in with that sticker, and that just felt like a very Florida thing. I think of that in the way that, like, if you showed up at a mass shooting with a "Keep America Great Again" shirt on, or "Keep America Great," people would look at you and like, "This, what are you doing? Yeah. Why are you're wearing that?" Like, oh, let me get a new shirt.
But they're on sale. Come on, I mean, 2 for 1? Still no? Okay, bad time. I'm sorry, bad time. How is it? So now you're on the road by yourself.
Yeah.
No Chad here this week.
Right.
You're the headliner.
Month. Yeah, this whole since mid to late July. So I just did a run of. I almost feel like I operate more like a band, where I just bunch up a whole bunch of shows and go do them in a short period of time, and then I hang out at home with my life associate as much as I can. I just like her a lot, and then also being on the road is you get weary.
Sure.
And so I don't love all the travel, and I don't know. I would travel more. I would do it more, I suppose, if it were just presented to me. But when I have to kind of hustle it up, I'm like, I don't know.
So this last, when you've been out on the road by yourself, what's how do you pass the time on the road by yourself versus hanging out with Chad? And
Right. Yeah. So I do my own podcast, and that involves a little bit of work and editing and things like that. And then I try to read books. I work on my act, like writing and stuff, a little bit more than I maybe used to. where it just takes a little bit of going, maybe listening to something, giving 2 or 3 notes on it, maybe writing something down, just things to try the next night. I don't think that was stuff I did before as much. And maybe it's because my memory was better. I almost felt like if I got off stage, I kind of knew every word. It felt like that a little, so that I could make that note for the next night. And then when I got to it the next night, just in the act, I'm like, oh, right, here it comes, make this change. And now I feel like I have to write it down a little more. I'll do that. I'll go jogging. I'll just take walks. I'll go walk around, get some food. Sometimes just lounge around in the hotel and watch stuff. And yeah, I don't have a set routine necessarily.
We're going to talk more about your podcast as this goes on right now. But did you record one this week in Minneapolis? Do you have one planned?
No, I was going to. I don't think I am. I brought my stuff.
We don't have any interesting enough people? Is that what you're saying?
I have some
no geniuses, no scientists, no
Well, I kind of like when people reach out to me, or someone will put me in touch, a friend of a friend or something like that. I don't go scouring through, the directory at a university or something and just blindly emailing people.
Okay.
I found the rate of return on that is too low. It's just not worth my time.
Okay.
And so nothing came together organically this time. And then, I really wanted to focus on making sure I had these jokes together in the way that I wanted. So during the day, sometimes podcasting can take your mind elsewhere, or you're kind of exhausted after an hour or two of chatting, that when you're done, you kind of just want to go and veg out a little bit. And I have friends and family and stuff in the area, so I wanted to be able to hang out with them. So no podcasting this visit.
So right before we started recording this afternoon, I saw this thing on Twitter that said, from our mutual friend, Tim Harmston. Just saw Huntsberger Junk do a brilliant hour of comedy at Acme Comedy Company. Go see him down there this weekend for his album recording and thank me later. You're recording?
Well,
or is he?
I record all the time. And so that doesn't necessarily mean it'll be a finished product.
Okay.
And I don't like when the crowd knows. I don't think it's organic. So
Tim.
I know. I almost didn't. I did retweet it that I thought, not enough people see or care about tweets anyway, that I don't think it's not suddenly going to be packed in here with people do the album, we want it. So I felt fine about it. But yeah, I also I never really want to get the word out about that. I like it just sort of happening and then becoming an album. It's sometimes you listen to people's CDs and it sounds like a little kid going to bat at T-ball for the first time, where everyone's just so behind them that every time even they swing and miss, the crowd's like, that's okay, we're still here for you. And I'd prefer it where that's just not how stand-up is.
True.
So if your album sounds like that, great. Whoa, you had a lively crowd, they were there for you. But sometimes that can be just too inauthentic to me, where I'm like, quiet down, I want to hear these jokes. This is too crazy.
Okay.
And not that would be an issue here for myself. I just don't like it on other people's albums. They invite everyone they know, and then that just to me doesn't really feel like comedy.
Right. So if you heard that, he's not recording, so feel free to laugh.
No, I'm always recording. You just never know when it could be.
It might be used.
thing.
It might not.
Yeah.
It might be the final show that he's doing this. It might be the 8,000th show he's doing this. You just don't know.
I watched this David Bowie documentary, and even the band members didn't know when the final time he did Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders. He was just
really?
they did a.
Did they hate him for that?
No, one of the guys in the band was it was so perfectly him, and it was great because we definitely had reached a pinnacle, and it was the best show we ever did. So it made sense to leave on that high note. And he goes, yeah, it did occur to me the amount of money I was going to be losing. But he was still I don't hold any ill will or grudges or whatever, because you kind of know going into that arrangement you're dealing with a guy that is not necessarily entirely unpredictable, but kind of zigs and zags and moves to his own beat. And then I just thought what to be in that crowd, especially to be just thoroughly enjoying it, and the musicians playing, and then to hear him go, thank you, this has been great, this will be our last performance, and everyone, people on stage, people off stage, have to go and process that and still enjoy what they're seeing. I just thought that was really, really interesting.
I better go buy a T-shirt.
Yeah.
So then the other thing we had going between today and the last time I saw you in Orlando, Florida, is Tuesday. We were all here for the Funniest Person in the Twin Cities finals.
Right. That was a great set of contestants, and then I missed that dinner, so we didn't get to chat a ton. Which I've heard was just a mix up in emails. I think I was purposely left. No, I'm kidding. I had been to that dinner in the past, and it feels like such a community thing. Everyone's involved there, and everyone's rooting for it. And
yeah, I love it.
It was great, man.
I was looking back. I think this was like my 9th or 10th year helping as like one of the judges for that thing.
Did you? Well, I don't know if you want to divulge too much, but do you feel like the judging laid out in a way that you were comfortable with the results?
Yes, I will say, and I think I said this in a past recording. I was one of the time, I come here almost every week to see a show, and so throughout the summer, all these contestants are coming up. One of the guys that was in the final performed one of the nights I came, like on a Wednesday night. And just so happened that night that one of the managers here was like, hey, we need one more person judging this prelim thing tonight. Would you do it? So I happened to help that night. The guy that went on from that night was in the finals. So I knew there was at least one strong candidate. He didn't win. The guy that I saw did not win. He could have. He finished high.
Yeah, they all had. If you were going through their highs, the things you would knock them for, none of them were things where you're like, they absolutely did not deserve to win. They were more so things like, this might cost them. If that makes any sense.
Okay.
Where you'd be like, this was really great. This was this person's thing they have going best for them, whether it was their stage presence or their writing or their timing. There's some people that did really great and didn't quite get to their closer or kind of fumbled their closing joke.
Yeah.
Other people started strong, maybe didn't finish as well, or vice versa. And so it was interesting to watch. They all had points to where you could be like, I could see why they would win.
Would you know immediately that if you were going to throw you in to a contest right now to do your top, could you do, what would be your 3 minutes?
3 minutes?
Yeah. You're the way you do your comedy, it doesn't all really work in 3-minute blips, does it?
It doesn't. I mean, I would have to just, no, it could. But I don't know that it would wrap up neatly.
Okay. That's a good way to say it.
At the end, I think it would just be, oh, I'm out of time. And then people are like, we didn't get to hear where I'm sure I would have some. I don't know that I would know specific. And I think that's really where you want to be especially if you're going to like do an album or something where you could pick any 3 minutes and be like, this should be good enough to do like on a late night show or in some sort of contest. Or I always thought that was a little weird when people were like, oh, I can't do a whatever length set. I can only do an hour. Like, what are you doing to that crowd? You're like tricking them in. They should be along with every minute of it. So hopefully, there have been times in the past where I was like, I think this is going okay, and then I listened to it and like, oh, it'll pick up here in a bit. And then you're like, that's not how you want to listen to comedy.
I can't remember if we talked about it before, but did you ever do a contest similar to that? Yeah,
when I was in San Diego, there was this contest that really soured me on them. I won't say the guy's name, although a while ago I was just talking about this weirdly, and I couldn't remember his name, so I'm glad I at least remember it.
Okay.
And he did this thing called Killer Comedy, and he would Killer Comedy Contest, which luckily it wasn't all in K's.
You're sounding like you're about to say KKK is what we all refer to it as.
Yeah, and then I showed up one time. I wasn't wild about it even just from the beginning. Even when I knew like nothing about comedy, I was like, I don't want it to be a contest. Why does everything have to be a contest? I like to think of it as an art form. People are like, no, it's fun. Like this, if you do well, then you get in working with this guy, and he books a whole bunch of other bars and restaurants and whatever else. And so I did it. I did great, and all the other comics came over to me and were like, great job, man. Like you definitely won. And I was like, oh, thanks. But this kid who was like 14 had invited his whole family. And he was cute. He was like a T-ball kid. Everyone's rooting for him. But his jokes were, he's 14. And then he won, and I got second. And I was like, I am definitely done with comedy contests.
How old were you?
I was 22 or 3 at the time. And then I moved to Austin, and they were like, you should do the contest. And I had spent the first few months I was there going from being like pretty, I could kind of walk into any show in San Diego and get some time or something like that, or get on the list at least. And then I went to Austin, and I was dead last all the time, if not like sometimes not getting on the show, or the open mic would go so long. They'd be like, sorry, man, the last audience member left. Like, do you still want to go? And sometimes I'd be like, is the staff still going to be here? So I would perform. I remember one time.
What did all the 14-year-olds get the good spots?
At the Velveeta Room one night, it was just, I believe, the waitress, maybe one drunk person, and the bartender. And so they're just kind of closing stuff up. The door guy had migrated in. and the host who was hosting the open mic. That's it. That was who was in the room. And then she was blowing out all the candles on all the tables. So I took one and just like held it on stage with me so that at least one of the candles would still be. So I was at that stage in Austin, and people were like, you should do this contest. It can't hurt. And I was against it, but I was like, you know what? This is really going slower than I'd expected. And so I did that contest, and it really was great. Like it was just like this one. It's judged, and you felt like there was some reason behind each thing where the people at the end of the night that were picked. Okay, I can see that, and I can see that. And then I got really lucky that the first night I did it, I had a pretty good set. And still there were some people that had not heard of me, even though I'd been there for a few months, maybe even 6 or 8 months at this point. And one of the like veteran guys stood up, like meaning like an older comic stood up when they were announcing the judging and like yelled out my name. So that was like a nice stamp of approval. So I moved on to the next phase, and then I made it to the finals. And then the guys who booked the Tonight Show were there and really enjoyed my set, and so started talking with me about doing the Tonight Show. And I was really excited, like, oh, I didn't even place. I had to go first. It was kind of a brutal spot to be in, but I thought my set still went okay. But you could feel the crowd was just still a little tight. And they were like, oh, we really liked your set. You know, the crowd was tight, but we saw it. We liked you. And I thought, oh, this is amazing. Like how often does someone that's scouting comedy actually look beyond the reaction necessarily? Right. And so I was excited by that. And then Last Comic Standing came around, and I really did not want to do that.
Oh, that's right. You did do that.
Yeah. And because I was working at the club, I worked in the basically the office, answering phones and making calls all day for the club.
Which club?
Cap City Comedy.
Okay.
And so
in Austin.
Yeah. And then so kind of like a sister club to this one, I feel like, in a weird way. There's a pipeline down 35.
I've heard that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I had to work for the day, and the owner came in and was like, and that was the tough thing, is the guys who booked the Tonight Show also were the judges for that show. And she was like, they keep asking about you. And I was like, I'm going to hold off and just try to do the Tonight Show. I'd like to do a late night set. I don't want to do this stupid contest. And then an hour later, she was like, they're really bugging me about you doing a set. And I was like, I just don't want to. And then she was like, I think if you don't do this, you probably won't be able to do the Tonight Show. And
it's
so
this or nothing. Are you
hearing
me?
Yeah, it was like kind of a weird ultimatum where I was like, ugh. And so I went, and like the 3 minutes that, like, what would you do? I just went out and did 3 minutes. And so anyway, then that's how I ended up doing that show, which in hindsight, I was like, I was kind of a poor sport about it, but I can be a little snobby in that way. You get forced all the time. And like, if you're a musician and yet they want you to wear some stupid outfit, or no, just play your riffs this way, or just play this type of music, or just be in this cover band. And the next thing you know, you're just shoved in the corner playing birthday parties, playing covers. And you're like, how did it get to this? Like, I wanted to be in a band.
Yeah.
You kind of got to be a bit of a jerk, I think, at times, or have a code. And so that was me, like, breaking my code, I thought. I just felt like, damn it.
How did your Last Comic Standing, how did that end?
I got so I made it from Austin to LA, and then I think 40 people came out for that, and then from those 40, they take 12 to like live in the house that year.
It was that format.
Yeah. And you can kind of look around and see there are 2 of everybody. So I'm a mid-20s white dude at that point. There was another one of me, and then maybe 2 or 3 of me, but one would have a beard, one would not, and there'd be like, you know, a heavier woman, heavier black lady, older guy. You know, it was just like 2 of everybody. Sure. I felt like
United Colors of Benetton.
And they sort of did systematically go through and kind of get one of everybody, which is to say, like, everyone's kind of indispensable. There wasn't a need to feel like, but I'm different. You could see, like, they can pick through a lot of people.
Sure.
But I hated it. I really disliked being a part of it. We'd be standing around, like, shooting the shit like this, and then all of a sudden a boom mic would drop in, and especially the New York comics, they would be talking just like this, and all of a sudden they'd see that boom mic and go, did I ever tell you about my cousin Tony? Oh man, one time and they'd launch into a story, and some of the people, like, their friends would play along and crack up, and I would just turn around and walk off and like, fuck this.
Good for you. I love that. I'm not. No. Natural or fuck you. No.
Oh, this is my favorite story from that too. Like, so me and Doug Mellard and Brendan Walsh, all funny Austin guys, are going out there for it, and we're at the airport in Austin getting ready to leave, and we go get lunch, and I have this thing at this barbecue restaurant where I order potato salad. I realize, they don't do potato salad here very well. I go to ask the lady at the thing, hey, can you switch it? But it's one of those where, like, she prints a ticket, the ticket prints out 20 feet away to the people making it, so they don't talk to each other. So I go, hey, can I can I switch that potato salad for beans? And she just kind of looks at me like, she looks down to the end. So I walk down to the end and I go, hey, this ticket that's going to come out, I think that's it. And the woman speaks virtually no English. And I don't have it in me at that early of time in the morning to break into Spanish and like try to just for beans and potato salad. So I go, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's okay. I get my food. I go sit down with my friends. I tell them that whole story, only longer. It takes like 5 minutes. And they both just kind of look at me and go, man, you should really tell that on the show. Because it was so boring. I got the same reaction. You just blank stares like, and like I ended up with potato salad. It's just so boring and such a non-story. So then what started happening is my friend Doug thought that was so stupid and so funny that when the boom mic would come in, he would go, hey, what'd you have for lunch today?
Yes!
Yes! And some of the comics they do their nodding faces of like, I'm into this. I'm on camera. Go ahead, sport. And I just methodically, as slowly and as boring as possible, tell that story.
And then the ticket was down at the end.
Yeah,
I went down there.
Yep. I would just draw it out and tell that story longer and longer until it got to where like the boom mic would come in and someone would go like, you had a potato salad thing? And the boom mic would just disappear. And so we're like at the end and I think you could probably find this footage somewhere. They're doing this thing of like, they're panning around the room as they're announcing who's made it. But they don't, the producers are just kind of watching everyone. The camera guys they're in their camera, so they don't see what they're about to see as they're panning left to right ever so slowly. And then they want us to all just sit there and act nervously. And I would like do that Jaws sort of both fingers in my bottom lip, mouth open, like... They'd go, cut, David, come on, you can't, you gotta look nervous, but not like that. I go, okay, sorry. And then
there's not a ghost coming.
And then I do some version of that again. They go, no, it's too much. Just sit there. Oh, okay. And then so they were really starting to get kind of pissed at me. But we get done, and the camera guys had to run like 1,000 feet. It was pretty with these heavy cameras, and they'd go film in this tent, and then we're back in this, and they'd run back to this tent. Now, folks, and they'd run back and forth. And this dude is just exhausted with his camera on his hip, just kind of like, it's late in the day, and they're, the contestants have almost all been announced at that point, and I know I'm not going to make it. And I say to one of the camera guys, who I had kind of started to recognize, I go, dude, you must be exhausted. And he goes, I am, man. If I'm being honest, this is so heavy, and I cannot wait to go get out of here tonight and dive into some potato salad. So
yes!
It was great. Like, we had made friends, and at least
got it.
Yeah, the crew laughed at it. So then that made us feel like success.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I hope I always remember that and never look at potato salad the same.
I try to involve it all the time because I think it's such a silly thing. Just the words together, potato salad, is funny to me. But then it also it makes me think of that stupid story, and then it makes me chuckle.
I love that.
And then Matt Fulcheron endeared himself.
Oh yeah,
to us.
I know Matt.
We've been friends since because he was already our buddy then. He was one of the people that, like Nikki Glazer. That's how Tig and I met each other. So there were some great Josh Blue. There were a lot of people that I felt like I knew just a little bit better coming out of that. But Matt was a guy that hung around us so much that he was someone that was kind of initiated into that cult of the camera would come in and he'd go, hey man, tell me about that potato salad. And then he was the only outsider that kind of like got into that thing. So I was like, this guy's cool. He gets
You just said Josh Blue. He was on the season you did?
Josh Blue, he won that year.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So Chris Porter was here last week.
Yeah.
He was that part of that season too, right?
Yeah. He didn't hang out a ton, so I didn't really know him from that much.
Yeah.
He had a lot going on. I think he was getting signed by representation and stuff at the time, so he was always busy. He was always being whisked off to some room. The dregs, the rest of us would just be sitting there at like the hotel bar. And then Josh being one of them, they lost his luggage, and so he spent most of his days waiting for his luggage to come. And they went, and I don't know why they couldn't go to a store, but they just bought him stuff. I think under the guise of the show that like he's not allowed to leave the hotel.
Oh,
so they bought him souvenir clothing from the hotel. So he had like a big Mickey Mouse shirt on and things like that. And he was just a cool sport about it. Make sure it just said California on it. He's like, hey. And so we're like, I like this guy. He's real mellow. He didn't care at all. I was like, yeah, it's fine.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's now talk about, let's give some attention to your special that is on Amazon Prime right now.
Hey, thanks, man. Yeah, I don't know if you know the backstory where like
some of it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a bunch of people volunteered. It was a thing on Professor Blastoff where a tarot reader was like, you have a project.
So that's true. I read that.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go on. There's a tarot reader.
Yeah. And she said, she read some card and she goes, you have a project that you want to do or you've thought about doing for a while and you haven't given it any life. And I was like, that's true. And she goes, well, you should talk about it.
Hold on. Now, when a tarot reader tells you that, your first reaction is it's true, but do you also think, yeah, but you're a tarot reader, so I don't believe any of your BS? Or like, well, you know what? I just needed a nudge.
It felt horoscopy to me. I mean, what are the chances you could say that to 50 people and at least 35 of them wouldn't have something? Most people have some project, whether it's fixing an old car or whatever. Yeah. So to me, it didn't ring as like, how did you know?
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like
that's what I would think.
Yeah. So I wasn't like, dazzled or anything. But I also thought, like, I'll play along. And so I did. I just mentioned, like, this animated idea. And then I just started getting flooded with animators from around the world that are like, I'll help. So then when that started to become real, then I did a Kickstarter. We made enough money from that to, like, hire a film crew, and I flew everyone into Austin. In hindsight, I have no idea how I afforded to do all of this. We flew all these people in and put them up in hotels. And
your goal on Kickstarter was?
We made $26,000, I think. And then, so we spent a little bit more than that. So I didn't make any money from it, but I got to make this thing, and it was just great. And then the pressure of, like, allocating a budget, and there's no thing where you can go to a flight purchasing site and say, hey, I need to spend this much money. Can you help me? The flights are always in flux. And so if you need to, I would have an animator say in DC that I need to fly to Austin. I'd see flights for $261. I'm like, that's pretty good. And then I check the next day and they're $313. I go, well, that's only like, $50, but times 20 people, that's a lot of money. We're like, you have got to be on top of this. So I was really trying to be as judicious as I could with getting the flights, got everyone there. And then I worked with this woman who you end up finding all these weird background sites where we're like, we can put you in touch and get you discount bulk deals. So I got a block of hotel rooms for really cheap. And then everyone else volunteered. So all the artists, all the people volunteered. I had a seamstress who made all these costumes, people that made paper mache things. And it just is a funky, weird-looking world that we created. Yeah. And then we shot it, and then nothing happened with it. It just, like, couldn't sell it to Netflix. And this was pre-them. This was when they were still, like, buying independent specials, So I thought it was, like, a likely avenue. Didn't go anywhere there, and then I ended up licensing it to a company, which I really regretted. And now I feel like, at least, it is on Amazon Prime now. Mixed feelings about Amazon as a company, but I do really like that people can see it now. Because it was just like sleepless nights and hours and hours and hours. And like we were talking before the show, when you're thinking about your podcast and it's hard to go to sleep. And it's the first thing sometimes you think of when you have free time. It's very much that. And then getting clips from animators and editing them and getting them the right codec and like plugging everything in, so that my girlfriend and I she got this software that allowed us to plug in basically a turntable and run the animation like music files or clips, so that she could move between each 3-minute segment of animation seamlessly. So it looked like it was all one big long thing, and then she could rock it to sleep and slow it down with the turntables or speed it up to catch up with me. So people watching,
very cool.
It was rad. And we did it at like some movie theaters and things like that, where it's just me as this little speck and then this giant projection screen behind me playing the animation.
You had to have it all synced
kind
up,
of,
right?
Yeah, I mean, we had to know certain points to hit at. So sometimes we would practice just in the house, which is a weird thing to just do stand up and be doing it, and she'd just be sitting on the floor working with this turntable thing and then making notes like, do you always say that, or what if you say this? But that allowed where if someone coughed or did something or heckled and I had to stop and talk with them, she would just kind of rock the animation back and forth.
Wow.
And then no one would know what was happening. And then once I started again, the animation would take back off. So we really kind of Wizard of Oz did a little bit, where people just thought like I was pressing play on a DVD and then reciting a stand-up bit.
Yeah.
And that'd be impossible. And so it looks very synced up. And so anyway, we shot that whole thing, and then we made 2 versions of it. One that was just fully the animation, another one's me and the animation. And then it just disappeared for like 4 years. And I'd kind of just given up on it. Professor Blastoff went behind a paywall, and no one could hear that. I mean, they could hear it, but you had to buy like a subscription. So suddenly all this thing of like just years of my life and all this work I had done were just buried, which is a good thing to learn, that like that's what life's going to be anyway. You're just going to disappear instantly. But to have it happen when you're still relatively young and very much alive was a weird feeling to be like, I wish people were seeing this now or hearing this now.
Were you getting the people that participated in the Kickstarter? They got everything that they had earned, were promised, and everything. Were any of them going, yeah, but what about? Is anybody else going to see this thing? We wanted this thing we helped you with.
Yeah, there were a few people when I put out the thing. Hey, it's on Amazon Prime. There were people that wrote, finally, or oh, it lives. Oh, great! I can't wait. I've heard so much about it. So I think there were people that thought, yeah, maybe it just never went anywhere.
Yeah.
And so, I would send all the people that did donate, or contribute, I shouldn't say donate, contribute. They got all their rewards, but a lot of that just involved like an MP4 file or even just like an audio file. Some of them just wanted, maybe like a CD of mine or something. So not everyone that contributed wanted a download of that, but they got either a streaming code, and that was through Vimeo initially, and no one watches anything on Vimeo. And it's a sad place to go if you go to the Vimeo marketplace. You just see the amount of movies that are already on all the streaming sites. There's as many, if not more, people that made an effort. It's like the self-published book community. So you go on Vimeo and you're like, and a lot of them you hear the concept and you're like, that sounds really interesting. But how many hours of your life can you contribute to like taking a chance on doing that, or especially paying for it? On Vimeo, if you're like, would I risk $4 on this video that I've never heard a sentence about?
Right.
But when you're living in that world, you're like, I hope people do that. I hope people
just take a chance. It's $4.
Yeah,
you cheap ass.
I know. But yeah, like the sales.
Yep.
Yeah, it was almost impossible. And I guess maybe you could do like targeted ads or try to like drive people there. But when I had my website for years, I have this little book of comics I've been selling at the shows, and people ask like what it is, and I'm always like, this was when I still thought independent websites could be like a mom and pop shop, and if you had enough content on your site, would people go there? And then when the big companies started, paying a staff to just not only have content update every day, but maybe every hour or maybe even every minute. So then you're like, but I'm just one person.
Yeah.
So your site, if people are refreshing it and it's not updating more than once every 3 days, you're not getting many visits, you know?
Yeah.
And so the comic book was like kind of my analog sort of, well, this is what used to be in the site. And then I just kind of think everything now got flooded, just kind of funneled into, you're either on Reddit or Twitter or Instagram or maybe Snapchat or something. And then everything that we see visually is kind of Apple or Amazon or Netflix or soon to be Disney. It's really just, it's like oil refineries or slaughterhouses, it all just gets funneled down into like 4 main tent poles.
Pretty much.
And so
I used to think Amazon. I freaking loved Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, everything, boom, I can get it here in 2 days for free or in an hour or whatever. They have everything. I can price comparison shop, price match. And I hated Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
In the last year, I've warmed up to Walmart, and I'm getting cold on Amazon.
Interesting.
Yes.
Maybe you think like the Waltons grew a conscience or something like that?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I've been tricked into entering a couple of Walmart stores in the last year or two. And I'm like, you know what? They do have everything.
It's so weird that would be like the final vestige of the marketplace where humans walk into it. We create all these dystopian futures and everyone knows them, is familiar with them, and goes, whoa, heads up for that. Anyway, Amazon Prime. And then a drone, not that far off, which they for sure have experimented with.
Oh, yeah.
But like brings a package, drops it off. I mean, if you just, and it's very like The Fifth Element, that kind of like you live in a little cube, a little tray slots out, your food drops in, the package you just ordered, whatever you have drops in, everything else is kind of digital.
Mm-hmm.
We are not that far off from that. And so are we going to fight back against it and go to stores and physically go into places? I don't think so. I think humanity, or even people that have that mindset, still go, I'd have to get in the car. I'll do it next week. I think we don't have it. We don't have the resolve and everyone's so busy. So it's just a perfect, like Jeff Bezos saw that. I think that's why he keeps the $110 billion. I bet he has the lowest estimation for humanity of anyone that ever lived.
Oh, that's terrible.
He's just, look at these ants, these pathetic little vermin. I think he hates humans.
You're right. How can we keep them in their houses all day?
Yeah, they're just gonna keep buying what I sell them. They think they hate me. Fuck them. I think I promote my special on there because all the eyes are there. So
no, but I mean, I've heard you on the beginning of your podcast going, I know people. You got mixed. I too have mixed feelings on Amazon. That's where it is.
Yeah. Someone messaged me, and I feel like this person, one, doesn't even go on the computer very frequently, or two, certainly doesn't like having digital exchanges. Maybe it's a person that was like, hey, let's meet here and talk in person. And I'm only sending you this message because I think it's kind of vital. The message was subject, one-headed beast, body. It's also available on Roku channel, comma, or maybe period. That's where I saw it, period. End of email. And I just love that. Like, yo, you need to know this. You don't need a lot of fluff with, hey, how's it going? Or hey, or see ya, thanks, best. Just here you go. And I thought, that's fantastic. I just love that. So I've been mentioning Roku, and then, of course, people shit on that. I'm a big Roku channel guy. And who knows that Roku isn't, of course, they're trying to be just like any of the other ultra juggernauts in the world. But for now, they are not. So there's an element of like, good for you, little guy. So I like that it does exist there so that you have the option.
There you go. I will say in Amazon's defense, not only do they have a place for people can see, and Roku for people can see your special, but also I haven't mentioned it recently. Mike E. Winfield, one of our favorites here on the podcast, favorite at Acme. He has his special Stepman is now available on Amazon Prime, and if you haven't, go watch it very soon.
And
very
if
funny.
you don't know that bit, just watch it for just that bit. Talking about Stepman.
So good.
So funny.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Just
he's a great
likable
comic.
Dude. Yeah, really funny. One of those guys where you see and you're like, how's this guy not way more famous? He has a cool look.
Yes.
Talks cool.
Yes.
He's nice, likable. He's funny. I could go on and on. Whenever I used to do that, my buddy would stop me and go, smells nice, handsome.
Fun to touch.
Smells real nice.
Hey, did you? This kind of is connected to what we were just talking about with the animation. You had people, trying to decide to, fly people in and put them up in a hotel, getting a deal, and other people donating their time. Did you see the Shaquille O'Neal thing from earlier this week?
No.
Well, you know who Shaq is.
Oh, of course I do.
So he put out a tweet. Did I save it in my iPad or the phone here? But I saved the story. It's he's going to be doing a TV show called Shaq Tunes, and he asked for animators, to send in ideas for his show.
Whoa.
Yeah, and if you get picked for the show to your animation to be on his show, you get a huge prize of $500.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
That's awful.
Yep, that's the reaction that the rest of Twitter gave.
That's horrendous.
This story's about, I think, a week old or so. I saw it at first, and I was looking at it again this morning. Yeah, Twitter attacked the shit out of him, and they have now changed it. The prize is now $10,000.
Okay, that's a little better.
Yeah, they were like people were like, in fact, someone even replied with like a chart of like, do you want to see how much animators charge for an hour of their work? You jerk, and you're asking for Come on, man. Like, it's backed by, like, I don't know, TBS or ABC. Like, it's a company. It's not even him. Like, it's somebody else's money. And $500.
I think that was purposeful, realistically. I'll bet they...
To get me to mention it on a podcast?
To get people
like
talking about it.
Yeah,
I mean, how hard is it to get publicity? You know, are people that fired up about an animation contest? No. But then now, you're mentioning it because it went so viral. You know, there's animation houses attached to it. There are people that were at least consultants in some way, and they were like, and then it was just a PR person being like, let's do like a crazy insulting reward or prize to begin with.
TNT, yep.
Get everyone furious, and then we'll up it to what is still a low amount. Even 10,000 for animating.
I was thinking that I was wanted to get your opinion on it. 10,000 still seems like it might be low.
Have you watched Alone on the History Channel?
No.
Do you like survival shows?
Yes.
It's fantastic. So it's...
I love survival. Naked and Afraid?
This is way better.
Is it better than Naked and Afraid?
100% better.
Then I'm going to love it.
It's better than Dual Survivor. Survival. It's better than Les Stroud, Survivor Man. It's better.
Oh, I like that too.
And Bear Grylls, if you like that one. It's just... That's like a Hollywood thing. But this one is 10 people that get camera gear. They get dropped in the middle of nowhere. And they film themselves, and the crew comes out to check on them once a week or so for medical checks. But otherwise, they get 10 survival items, and they all choose differently. You get some basics. You get a tarp. You get this. You get warm gear.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, do you want a knife or do you want a hatchet? Do you want a saw to cut wood or do you want a flint to start fire? You have to choose pretty wisely, and then just go. Whoever is out here the last wins $500,000. And so you can see from a production standpoint, like we have no sets. We have one location that we pay for. We have a tiny ass crew.
Yeah.
We rent some helicopters or boats to get back and forth to the people. We own the camera gear. So $500,000 still could make you a significant chunk of change. So to have animators just contributing their stuff for free on a show that you just screen it on, it should be $1 million to the winner. I mean, 10,000 is ridiculous.
People were calling it out also after they read the fine print, and it was like, oh, no matter what you submit, they own it. Whether they use it or not, they own it.
Then they use it, and then you don't win, and they own it. You make no money. You have given them free content. I mean, at least when you do stand-up on a late-night show or something, they give you like $1,000 or something, because comics act as if they're scratching at the door, like, please let me perform at your show, because the exposure element, which is still such a currency, weirdly, in entertainment. But those shows are like, what if these idiots knew how much advertising money we were making pre and post their little 4-minute set?
Yeah.
They'd want more than $1,000.
Yeah.
So everyone gets tricked into it with the idea of exposure. It's just such an unfair currency. So.
Hey, I worked in radio for a long time. The pay for a lot of people in radio is you're privileged to work here.
Yeah. I mean, there's something about like.
Oh, you turn your back on the free DVDs, huh?
You got to go to that Chevy dealership, man.
Come on, man.
Those aren't free, activities.
The car show? Hello?
Remember when you had to stand there on your feet for 6 hours?
Come on. You got to go to the car show. Remember you gave out koozies at a movie? Come on.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
we gave you that.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Are you, David Huntsberger, excited that Eddie Murphy is coming back to do stand-up?
Oh, man. So this material that I'm currently doing is very visual. People seem to be enjoying it because it's just kind of silly and fun. And then I did One-Headed Beast, and again, it just got thrown in a trash can, essentially. And then now, luckily, is available in streaming. I think it's different and cool, and I think it, if nothing else, was just trying to take like a little bit of a swing at like, what if we did this? What if something was a little different? So if I were given just a substantially higher budget than that, and that's $25,000, no one makes a special for that amount of money. And all they do is shoot in a theater. Maybe they bring in a jib arm. I mean, there's no reason to have high production on a stand-up special.
Right.
You have one location, and sometimes people buy tickets. If you have a following, it should just be a wash. Like, I got a whole lot of issues with the budget that goes into stand-up specials. But so to know that, like, maybe he'll do something really cool. But if he just comes out in like, ooh, he did red and blue, and maybe he'll do a black suit this time of leather, or maybe is he going to wear the gloves? We're all going to watch, and I'm excited from that standpoint. I'm excited to see. But when someone's had that much money and been detached from paying bills, from being a traditional, relatable human being, I almost never enjoy it. And I
honestly, have we even heard good things about Eddie Murphy for the last 20 years?
I don't think we've heard terrible things. I mean, even him picking up prostitutes, his story was like, this person was in the rain, cold, and I was giving them a ride home. And people were like, you were going to have sex with... Okay, so you're going to have sex with a transvestite, or whatever the appropriate term. I think transvestite is out now. A crossdresser, or a trans gentleman or woman with... maybe they have a penis. Whatever you're into... that's okay. So that to me is not a knock on Eddie Murphy. I don't think he's like beaten anyone up. He hasn't done anything outlandish to a degree where you're like, fuck Eddie Murphy. So I still love him as a person. I still think he's offered so much in my life in entertainment that I'll just be thankful for forever.
Yeah.
However, am I excited to see someone that has no stake in it? There's no skin in that game. It's wait, Ellen got $25 million? How much could I get? You can get $70 million? I'll do it. When that's your impulse to do something artistic, I'm not wild about what the result is going to be or the process.
They're saying this morning that he's going to even go on the road, that it's not just going to be
a
Netflix special.
He's got to work on it.
Yeah, and he's doing SNL.
Mm-hmm. And that excites me. That excites me way more than the stand-up special.
I agree. Me too.
Yeah, I think we're just in this weird frenzy place now where you have the 1%. Conan coming into the podcasting world is the 1% kind of encroaching back down into like, hey, man, this is our this is our flea market. This is our bazaar where we sell our wares. You have Saks on Fifth Avenue, man. You got a big-ass store. Don't come sell at our fucking flea market. It kind of feels like that with the stand-up world where like, oh, you either the big people with Netflix specials or you're just some jackass on a weekend where people go, I guess we'll go see comedy. And then... that maybe the difference in between is fair. Maybe there is a discrepancy in talent that is that gargantuous. I don't buy it though. You just made a great point about he's
I'm excited to see Eddie Murphy do stand-up. I'll tell you that his have you tried to listen to Raw or Delirious?
They do not hold up.
No.
Yeah, to be honest, my friends were into them when I was younger, and I had like gay people in my life, and so hearing someone just flippantly say, the F word, I wasn't into, and then my friends would be like quoting the ice cream thing or the you're on the well, and I'd be
can't
like,
afford it.
yeah. And I'm like, well, these are classic bits, and I'd crack up just hearing my friends tell them, and then they'd put it on, and I'd watch a little bit of it and just be like, I'm just not into this. I don't know. It was either too cool or like I liked him. He's Axel Foley to me at that point, So seeing
Acme.
him be,
I still laugh when I fart in the tub. You can smell it. You can smell it.
You still take baths?
I did this morning, my friend.
All right, not good. I'm just saying. I don't meet a lot of people that still take baths.
Very relaxing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The same friend that made fun of me for the thing with the smells nice, handsome. When we'd be having drinks and it got late in the night, he would disappear. Inevitably, you'd go in the bathroom, whoever's house you're in.
Oh,
and he'd have like a glass of red wine and he's like 6'5", and just be naked in their tub, just quietly bathing.
No.
Hey, buddy, you having a bath? Yeah.
I don't even have a good one at my house, but when I have the time, like a day like today where I'm not, this is what I'm doing today. I was prepping for this podcast. I didn't work anyplace else, so sometimes I
get in that bath.
Relax.
It feels great. The bath feels great.
Did you watch Chappelle's new special? He stole your outfit, as you pointed. I saw you pointed that on Twitter. He stole your jumpsuit idea.
Yeah, I mean, he did Half-Baked, and people have worn jumpsuits. I mean, we borrowed the idea. This is pre, Mystery Science Theater coming back. So the seamstress was like, oh, we have these jumpsuits. And I was like, I knew I wanted to wear something funky, and I had been trying to say to her, like, what if we did this or that? And she brought up the jumpsuit idea. I was like, yeah, it's pretty much what I had in mind, and I love Mystery Science Theater. This would be like a little tip of the cap.
Yeah.
And then Mystery Science Theater came back. So then I think if people were seeing it come out, they're like, why is this dude, why is he wearing what Jonah's wearing?
Yeah.
But then for Chappelle to be doing it, it just was weird. Like, he has the same placement of articles. There's a shoulder thing that's kind of white, and there's a name tag thing on the chest. And that was really strange to see. Like, they're very similar.
Yeah.
There's no chance he saw my thing at all. But there is a significant chance that if I do like a follow-up and I wear the jumpsuit again, people will be like, oh boy. But I just have I don't have a lot of juice. So like if I share that tweet of like, this is similar, it doesn't ignite Twitter with like, oh, weird. Oh, yeah.
Gizmonics Institute says that. I think he stole that idea. I looked up to see if you were doing anything on Kickstarter nowadays. You've done it twice.
I've done it twice,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I could again. I just feel like, I mean, really, this material that I may or may not record, I still owe it to some people. I went to the Fringe years ago, and I recorded some stuff. I had like the things I could reward them with for that. So I created a whole bunch of animation that goes along with this set. And so that's the bulk of what that Kickstarter was, and to help with going to the Fringe. So then I went there and did that, and then I came back with all this animation, and I liked where the material was. I didn't love it. And then so I didn't reward the people. I didn't send them the MP3s I had from the shows and stuff like that. I just thought, like, I want to get a little better.
Oh.
So every now and again I would get a message from someone like, dude, I contributed to this like years ago. And you can put like a loose date on the thing so people kind of know, like, you don't have to hit that deadline. You want to, but when you're picking it, it's already kind of arbitrary unless you know, like, I will be done June 1st, 2021. And so every now and again I would get a thing like, hey, I'm so sorry. Did I miss the rewards from this? And I'll have to write back and be like, nope, still coming.
What kind of stuff I didn't know it does this, but I saw it says that you've started to and that you've supported 7.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're fun to. I mean, I feel like when I
name
have
something
friends,
that you followed that you've supported on Kickstarter.
I can't even think of any, honestly.
Really?
I think
Okay.
maybe some friends of mine were doing to do a tour with their band. There's another like tech thing that I like a backpack or something. And beyond that, I can't really think of any. But yeah, I'm open to it. Definitely, if you just get to scrolling on there, you'll probably find something. You're like,
I do that.
Oh, you
sometimes.
do?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I've backed 2 things. One product I have already, and the other one I should be getting, I think, any day now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I got like little earbuds.
Cool.
Like knockoff, Apple. They're like $50 basically. I just got them like 2 weeks ago, and they work awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
little carrying case and stuff.
I wanted to pitch this, and I did. I pitched this idea that would be like a weekly topical kind of science show, like everything happening in discovery, space exploration, weird stuff that washes up on the beach, pseudoscience stuff with like Bigfoot sightings and things, advances in medicine, and just silly, like making fun of it. But a thing I really wanted to do was like a tech demonstration, but you really using Kickstarter for that because you could help people, one, and two, you could expose them to phenomenal technology. And a lot of times they just have a prototype that costs them all their money, and they're trying to do Kickstarter to like mass produce it.
Yeah.
So you can look at that like, oh, this is a microphone stand that folds itself up or becomes the microphone or something where you're like, who thought of that? And then it just disappears because it didn't get the funding. So somewhere that's got to happen.
Yeah.
Right? Like I would watch it.
I would too. For sure I would.
Didn't take off.
My wife backed a thing, and it's been like almost a year, and she hasn't seen jack shite.
Oh, yeah.
And it was it's some sort of like thing to basically, instead of using a toothbrush to brush your teeth, you put this like, I don't know, like this mouthpiece guard thing in, and it has little bristles supposedly, and cleans your teeth like in 6 seconds or something.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But didn't get it.
They're still working on it.
I would trust them. I mean, you can message them and be like, what's going on?
Oh, yeah, they're giving the updates
occasionally.
I just checked with her recently. She hadn't had an update for several months.
I had one that I think this was a GoFundMe that took so long, I unsubscribed from the updates. And because I just didn't care anymore.
This is just a runaround.
I was like, I was just kind of helping to help. Now these emails are getting obnoxious. I don't need like a every other week update. Either do it or don't do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to know that you might be screening it in some city or something.
Keep it to yourself. You know what we should have mentioned? I never mentioned the kid who won the contest. We should say his name. Charlie Settles.
Charlie Settles.
Yeah, 23 years old.
Got a bright future.
Yeah.
To have that sort of comfort on stage at 23, to just sit there. And granted, now maybe it's different at 23 where like Mitch Hedberg could watch Stephen Wright, but who could Stephen Wright really watch to be like, I'm going to be the guy that tells jokes this slow.
Yeah.
And the crowd just ate it up.
Oh, yeah. The pauses, he was nailing them.
And just
long.
That confidence. Yeah, I mean, that Charlie kid, when he told what I felt like won him the contest, that joke, he tells the first punchline. I felt like he sat there for 20 seconds, and the crowd was just rippling with laughter, and then he did the second punchline, and it still worked.
Yeah.
That is pretty... I think that's unteachable. That's a pretty fascinating ability to have, to just be that comfortable sitting around. Because two things are happening. You're, one, not really thinking too much about, like, when's the right time to jump in, but you are.
Yeah.
But secondly, you just have this weird confidence that, like, wait till you hear this part. No matter how long I wait, it will still work. And I thought that was impressive, so I liked him. Yeah,
he was good. We talked about it a little bit already. Let's give some attention to the podcast you've been doing. I looked back when you were here doing the show we did with Cy. I think it had just started.
Really?
Space Cave had just started.
Oh man, yeah. 2015, I want to say, is when it got off the ground.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you're a little bit into it then.
Maybe, yeah, because I'm about to do number 200, and it's been basically one a week. I've had a few gaps where I missed a little bit here and there, but overall, like one a week. So just about to hit 200. But it's only about 100 guests. And if not, I've
3 parts?
Yeah. I didn't want to do a 3-hour podcast every week. That would just, you start forgetting things and you start forgetting guests. And I more so wanted it to be like where I really can engage in the conversation. But I didn't know if people would be like, oh, cool, I'm enjoying this conversation. And then it pauses and you have to wait a week. So a lot of people binge it. They just wait and then listen to a bunch all at once, which I think is pretty common these days in podcasting.
Oh, it is. I listen to quite a few different ones, and I end up
that's how you
doing
do
that.
it. Yeah. I think there's a pretty small amount of people that are just waiting there every Monday morning to like get the new one.
Yeah.
But I try to be aware of that and put it out on a timely schedule. But yeah, it's been fun. Like it hasn't really taken off. It's not particularly successful, and it's weird.
You do Patreon?
Yeah, and I have like 45 people maybe that do that. So it's not exactly like, gonna pay all my bills and stuff like that. But it shows me that at least a few people are into it, and it means something to them. And so I love it for that reason.
And your guests are like everyone from like people that I've had on this podcast. I saw like Ryan Stout has been on, J. Elvis Weinstein, Derek Hughes.
Yeah.
All people that have been on this podcast that perform at Acme. But also you have like scientists and specialists in certain things.
The one that's out, depending on when this comes out.
Oh yeah, there's a brand new one today.
Today,
right?
yeah, and he's
this will be out now.
He works for NASA's Ames Research Institute, and he's a carbon cowboy, which is so fascinating to talk to someone who has a PhD from Stanford who works in climate science, and then be like, hey, how do I go to like Thanksgiving dinner and talk about this? And you would think he'd go, say this, this, and this. And he goes, I don't really get into that. And I was like, what? But you're who I need to be referencing if we're having these discussions where people go like, it's not really a thing. And he's like, I mean, you could say that factually we've been putting more carbon dioxide in the air since the Industrial Revolution than prior to that. And that's what I study. And so his whole thing is just determining how much the plants, they need a certain amount of it, but then how much extra is going in, how much is detrimental to them, how much oxygen are they giving off, where's the carbon going? He kind of likened it to if there's a giant bathtub, to bring it back to that, and we all had just like a tiny little cup of cream, and the bathtub was filled with coffee. Each one of us was putting in just a little dose here and there. After a while, we wouldn't really know where it came from. The cream would all just start to swirl in. It can end up real far away or mingled with other stuff. So his job is trying to like trace where it came from and in what amounts and things like that. I thought it was so fascinating. So when I talk to like these Jet Propulsion Lab people or NASA people or Caltech people, to me, I just feel like we don't really get an opportunity to do that very frequently.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it. And luckily people that listen to the show seem to like that too, just to get a little insight into, and I involve beer and keep it like pretty casually, but
yeah, some music.
Yeah, I got some music. I want it to just be a pleasant, quiet, like calming, good bath listening.
Can I know in advance what beer is going to be, and I can like join and I can sip the same one? I saw one of the episodes you drank one of my favorites, Castle Danger, the cream ale.
Yeah,
love that stuff.
I used to do a thing
from Minnesota.
That. There was some, and Duluth, in fact, and so or near Duluth.
Yeah, Two Harbors.
Yeah, I was just up there recently. I went to the brewery. And someone reached out to me early on in the show to ask that very question. And I used to do a tweet every Friday, hey, this week's beer is going to be this. See if you can source it. And then fewer and fewer people were paying attention to the tweet or responding to it or saying, hey, great, I'll get it. And I just thought like, it doesn't really have any return on investment for the time it took. But I easily could do that. Maybe I should start doing that again. What happens a lot is like, oh, I got this beer that's distributed in 2 states. So if you live in this area, you can get it. Yeah. So that started to frustrate people, I think.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So, and all the macro breweries own all of like Ballast Point and Lagunitas and these ones that you can find everywhere where you're like, ooh, here's an IPA not everyone has tried. Like they have. They're in every state. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
So tough to find a thing which I love, like going to a place and just having like their regional thing. Like, what do you guys make here?
Mm-hmm.
Always have new stuff in Minneapolis, it seems like.
Oh my God, there's a brewery every other building downtown here is a brewery now, pretty much. I'm not complaining. There's just a lot. I listened to the episodes you did with the guy Conrad something that was a Scientologist.
Yeah.
Because, as people listening to this podcast know, I am one of many that are absolutely fascinated. Scared, fascinated by Scientology.
What'd you think because he's a guy in the 70s going into the 80s that did it. So it was a different kind of vibe.
Yeah. When it came to that part where he was like, well, I was in for 14 years. And I'm thinking, oh, so like from 2000 to 2014 or something? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I was out in the 80s. Like,
yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, and still...
Like before it was cool to leave in Scientology. Holy cow.
Yeah, but then that woman he brought up who had to leave by like Dark of Night, essentially, was around that same period. So they were still Sea Orgy, like real creepy and clandestine then. He just, I think, got lucky that when he left, they weren't aggressively trying to hassle him about it.
Yeah.
They just call him like, hey, man, you need to take some new classes. I'm saving up. And they just leave him alone.
Yeah.
Like if Scientologists ever call you, just go, I'm saving up and I want to get the next book. Okay, talk to you soon. But that, really fascinating. And different than what I thought it was going to be, because I thought it was going to be all of the documentary stuff we see and things like that.
It was a little different. Because I've watched all of the stuff. I've seen the movies. I've read I've read Leah Remini's book. I read, I think, 2 more books in addition to that in the last few years. Yeah. I don't read a lot of books, but I am fascinated by that stuff.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. And I just thought, like, especially looking at him, seeing him, I think I mentioned it in the second part where he's just a guy that just like needed a group. He just wanted some people to love him.
Yeah.
And found that in that for a little while. And then how disappointing when you're feeling that love, and then they go, you should buy another level.
Yeah.
Like, but don't you care about me? We definitely do, but we will care even more if you buy the next level.
Yeah.
And that to me like really summed up a part of it.
Well, how about the thing that stood out to me was when he's explaining to you about how when he was in it and he was told them he was having like depression problems. And they didn't try to help him.
Yeah,
they said,
like,
sign
all
this.
Stuff. Yeah.
So we have it documented that we have nothing to do with your depression, basically.
Or your death.
Yeah, your death, or what comes after this. Like, holy fuck.
I know, yeah. And that, I mean, again, going to that thing where he's like, but you care about me, right? Right. We just want you to sign this that says, if you die, we can say you were never a member of this church and none of us knew you. But we love you. We do love. That was... What a heartless, weird, crazy sort of thing. And this was all pre-David Miscavige, too. So definitely a different period where now it's a little
Yeah, L.
more
Ron Hubbard was still alive when this guy was in it, which is nuts.
Yeah.
Can you separate... This has been something that's been coming up on the podcast recently, because all of our people we put on a pedestal, like we over these last several years, we're finding out people aren't perfect.
Yeah.
They have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I mean, some really, really, really shitty. From freaking Bill Cosby to R. Kelly to Michael Jackson to, Tom Cruise being a Scientologist. Can you separate the side? Like, do you hold that against somebody like Tom Cruise? Like, there's going to be another Top Gun movie coming out.
Yeah,
are you excited to see that? And has nothing. Who gives a shit that he's a weirdo Scientologist?
The Scientology doesn't bother me about him. I don't care about that. What bothers me is that he abandoned his daughter. Like, he doesn't see Suri. She's a
let me
or something.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
And
she's suppressive. Well, let me ask you again then. Let me combine those two into the question.
Okay.
Can you still enjoy a movie with Tom Cruise knowing that because he's a Scientologist, it's affecting his relationship and he's shunned his daughter, which is fucking awful.
Yeah.
Can you separate that?
I liked Apocalypto, the Mel Gibson movie. I liked Hacksaw Ridge, and I think it's different. I see Tom Cruise playing a character, and that's the thinnest for me I'm not going to contribute my money to this. I don't think it stops someone from being harmed, which is very different. If it's R. Kelly, if I hear his music, I want to turn it off because of that thought. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Michael Jackson. And I don't even, I haven't even watched the documentary yet. There's just been too many things, and he was too weird. And I loved him growing up. He had a huge impact on me. But now when I hear his music, I feel like, is everyone just going to ignore this? Is everyone just fine with this? So I feel really weird about that. I don't know if it has to do with like the crime in particular versus how great I think the art was in the past, or if I'm just a complete hypocrite. But
I'm a hypocrite when it comes to Michael Jackson because I don't deny that he's a scumbag, but I still have that connection to those. Like when I hear "Smooth Criminal," I can't sit still.
Yeah,
I just can't.
No, very few people can. And why would you? Like, it was your whole childhood and like young adulthood of just being like, this is the greatest. Can you believe this person lives and exists?
Yeah.
But then you have Prince, who didn't do any of those things, who wrote his own music, played his own instruments, produced his own tracks. Just on that level is so much more fascinating and compelling.
Yes. And
that he didn't have any associations with children.
Correct. Yeah.
Bless his heart.
Yes.
But
I'm like I've always been a huge fan of Beck. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm like,
he's not really in the church anymore.
Is
though.
he? Is he not?
He doesn't talk about it. I think he left years ago, and he just doesn't want them to fuck with him. I think he kind of just go like, I don't talk about that. Or
okay.
This is the most you get out of them. Jason Lee, people like that. Like, I don't want to talk about the church. I don't have much to do with it. That's about the most you get. There's never like a slamming on them. Because they all know there's some tapes somewhere of them saying some weird shit that the church is like, we have this on you, We can release this.
Have you seen the picture of Travolta from like back in the 70s when he's like, young Travolta holding the e-reader?
Oh, I'm sure I have, probably.
Just really? You didn't? Man.
There's so many gay stories about him, and crazy that in this day and age he would feel any apprehension about coming out.
Right.
You're like, come on, man. Like you could say you openly out and gay, and the church would go, we have evidence you had sex with men in the 70s. You'd be like, yeah, I already mentioned that. Mm-hmm. And then we'd all go, good for you, buddy.
Yeah.
You're free.
Right.
Run.
Mm-hmm.
When I watch Tom Cruise, I feel bad about Suri. I feel like he's a psychopath. You hear so many stories, and this happens in L.A. People are like, I don't normally go to a restaurant like this, but I was having lunch, and Tom Cruise was there talking to like what looked like a network or a studio executive, and he's bigger than life, charming Tom Cruise, and they're both laughing, and Tom Cruise is so like demonstrative, and he's extravagant in the way that he moves his body. And she goes, and then I kind of stopped paying attention to him, and then later I'm waiting for my car at the valet, and I look over. And there's Tom Cruise waiting for his ride or his car or whatever, and it was like a robot that had just been shut down. He just was... And so I think, like, you learn those... Anyone that tells you a story about him will be like, he's the most engaging, he'll look you in the eyes and ask about you, he'll care about you and want to know things about you, and I think he's just... Those are learned things. It's almost like... when people have Asperger's or kind of spectrum stuff, they go, listen, here's a social cue. You might not feel it, but when people do this, this is what you do.
Yes.
So then they just learn it not as an instinctive reaction, but as like, oh, right, in this situation, I'm supposed to do this. And I think that's what he's done. I think this is how you become a movie star? I'll do it. This is how you become this? They give him medals. You're the best ever. You're Phaeton number one. You're good. And so I just see kind of a sad little guy that probably doesn't have close, meaningful friendships. And he just abandoned his daughter. I don't know.
Oh, I definitely feel bad for her. Are you excited for the next Star Wars movie coming out in December?
No. I got out. I think I hated Rogue One, and then I was like, enough of this.
Yeah.
No more Death Star shit. I don't care about.
No more floating Princess Leia. Did you see that one?
No. Fuck. They just I just don't like when, because I went to Comic-Con, and when it used to be the comic book nerds would get picked on because the thing about them was, in the movie he's actually this, but in the books it's just the real dude. And they go, shut up, nerds. They made your movie, for God's sake. All you're going to do is complain about it. But then you go to Comic-Con and see how they've turned these little things that were like one-headed beasts to some people. A little thing you had to go find and share with your friends and go, no one knows about this. Read this thing. This is this person, and these are his powers. These are her powers, and this is what they do. And then, what's that? You guys all like this? And then they steal it, and they get the rights, and they build it into this giant mega structure. And then you go, it's actually right. They go, shut up. At least it happened. You're lucky to get it. So I feel bad for them. I feel like they were right. Like, you took their thing and you just destroyed it. You stripped it away of anything that had any level of, like, I don't know, like subversiveness or, abstract elements to it. You just turned it into, like, everyone will get this. It's big and it's bold and it's in your face. And so they did that. Of course, Disney would with Star Wars. Just like, what won't these nerds buy? Can we just Can we make 1,000 of them? How much money can we bilk out of them?
Mm-hmm.
And I think even my most like strident supporter fans are, they're in their 40s now. That are like, I'm kind of bailing out, and that's so weird to see. Like, oh, that's what it took. It took 10 movies for you to finally be like, all right, it kind of changed the whole universe. It bums me out a little bit. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to keep up with my tradition of going either the first day or the second day.
Mm-hmm.
I've groomed 2 young girls to be semi-interested in Star Wars movies. All right, I put work in. Damn it.
That's an accomplishment.
I've already looked ahead to when it comes out in December, and I don't have to work anywhere else that night. I already know that I have the night free. I've already told my daughters we're going to be able to go opening night together. So.
Cool.
For me, it's part of still having that.
Yeah.
I have this thing that was around with my childhood. It's much like I just went and saw Weird Al again last week at this Minnesota State Fair with my daughters. Second time I've taken them to see Weird Al.
Yeah.
I saw Weird Al at the State Fair for the first time when I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
Now my daughters are going into 6th and 8th, and they've seen him for the second time.
Cool.
At the same freaking venue. Like, decades apart.
You will
so
not
I love that
this.
stuff.
I have some friends that just went and saw Weird Al, and I think he did, the Greek. It's like 10,000 seats.
Oh, he did 13,000 people here, yeah.
And every story, so it's the opposite of Art and Artist, where people love Weird Al, and rightfully so. He's a prince of a human. Everyone loves him. But also, if he were not, I would posit that his art is not good enough to withstand even a casual groping allegation. Because people would go, oh, I didn't even these are just parodies.
How dare you, sir?
I'm sorry. But it does. Imagine if a comedian was selling 13,000 seats, doing other people's bits in their same cadence with slightly different words. We would never stand for it. We'd be like, what is this? But with the music, we go, that's great. It's the greatest thing ever. So I struggle with it because I love him. I think he's amazing as a person. Artistically, I have some misgivings. I apologize. I've said negative things about 2 of your hallmarks.
And you know what? I'm looking at the clock here, and we just, oh my God, we are out of time.
That happened to me. I know we genuinely are out of time.
We are.
But that happened to me at a radio station, and not the one I did today. And I don't.
Oh, you can
remember which
badmouth them. That's fine.
Okay, I did a radio station with like, and this isn't to be like, oh, these were genuinely the bands that were on the wall. It was like Three Doors Down and Creed and Nickelback and a couple others, gold records they sent to this radio station.
Yep.
Thanks for the support.
Yep.
And I go in, and what comics did you like growing up? And I started to say, like, you know, really everyone has these big people that you think influence you, but I remember the half-hour comedy hour, so I like Janine Garofalo and Dana Gould and Paula Poundstone and people like that, Margaret Cho even.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy goes, did you like anyone funny? And just kind of as a joke, and I go, well, I think you could subjectively make an argument that all of those people are funny. And then the other guy goes, as long as you don't like Seth Rogen or Adam Sandler. And I go, if you didn't think Adam Sandler's CDs were funny, if you didn't think The Talking Goat was funny or like Toll Booth Willie, we have such different comedic sensibilities that I don't think we're. And he genuinely goes, oh, all right, folks, we're out of time here, and like ushered me out
For Adam Sandler.
For Adam Sandler, who I still love unabashedly, and yeah, that really stuck with me. I was just like, oh, fuck that guy. So anyway, I think it's hilarious that you would run me out of here after Star Wars and Weird Al, but a perfect ending.
Thank you once again. Let's do this in sooner than 2 years.
Yeah, I
all
hope
right?
so.
Come
Yeah,
back.
thanks, man.
And people, obviously come see the shows. You're working with Brandy Brown, James Moore.
Both very great, yeah.
Great comedians. And after the show, you're out in the lobby here.
Yeah, I've got my comic books. I have DVD copies of One-Headed Beast, and I have some CDs. One of which was recorded right here in Acme. The first one I did with Dan Schlichel and Stand Up Records.
That doesn't mean you're recording another one here. It just
That's
means
true.
that at one point you did.
Yeah, but maybe your voice will be, if I do, you never know. It'll come out. I'd love to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Boom.